Well, the Swedish royal family beginning a rare 3-day visit to Canada today. It's a state visit. King Carl Gustaf, Sweden's longest reigning monarch, and Queen Silvia will be in Ottawa and Montreal until Thursday. The visit comes as the Swedish defense firm Saab and the Liberal government consider a deal to begin assembling its Gripen fighter jets right here in Canada.
Good evening. One of the largest defense contractors in Europe is making a play for a piece of this country's military market.
10,000 research and manufacturing jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its military fleet.
We, as Saab, we are prepared to do that technology transfer to Canada and support that build-up.
When King Carl XVI Gustaf of Sweden touched down in Ottawa, the headlines were predictable. Swedish king visits Canada to boost bilateral ties. Canada welcomes Scandinavian royalty. But behind the ceremonial optics, experts quickly noticed something curious. The Swedish delegation accompanying the king didn't only include diplomats, cultural ambassadors, and trade representatives. It also included defense industry officials, specifically from Saab, the manufacturer of the Gripen fighter jet. This wasn't coincidence. It wasn't symbolic. It was strategic. Sweden knew that Canada's fleet modernization plans, long linked to the F-35, still contained unresolved considerations, questions about cost, sovereignty, Arctic operations, and long-term industrial benefits. And Sweden came prepared. To understand why the Swedish king's visit matters, we must first understand Canada's long, complicated, almost dramatic search for a next-generation fighter jet. For decades, Canada relied on the CF-18 Hornet, a Cold War icon that served admirably in NATO operations, NORAD patrols, and Arctic missions. But by the mid-2000s, Canada needed a new fighter. Thus began a 15-year political battle involving shifting governments, budget concerns, U.S. pressure, NATO commitments, industrial interests, changing public opinion. At one stage Canada committed to the F-35, then cancelled, then re-evaluated, then held a new competition, then recommitted to the F-35 again. By 2024, the assumption was clear. The F-35 had won. Decision final. Case closed. Or so everyone thought. Even after the F-35 agreement, the Swedish Gripen refused to disappear from the conversation. Why? Because it brought something that fighter jet programs rarely offer. Independence. Domestic industrial participation. Arctic suitability. Cost efficiency. Ease of maintenance. The Gripen was specifically designed for smaller, colder countries with large land areas exactly like Canada. Its selling points included takeoff from short, icy runways, fast turnaround times with minimal ground crew, operating cost far lower than the F-35, technology sharing and domestic production options, full sovereignty over data, maintenance, and software. In simple words, Gripen is the smart fighter, not the flashiest, not the stealthiest, not the most expensive, but the most adaptable. So even after Canada announced the F-35 purchase, the Gripen remained in discussions among military analysts, economists, and national defense commentators. But it needed something to push it back into the public spotlight. And that something arrived wearing a crown. During the king's visit, Canadian and Swedish officials held meetings that the public never saw. But what was visible was the messaging. Sweden emphasized collaboration. Sweden emphasized innovation. Sweden emphasized military-industrial cooperation. In public speeches, the king highlighted shared northern geography, mutual defense challenges in the Arctic, the importance of technological independence within alliances. These statements resonated deeply in Canada, especially as the Arctic becomes the new frontier of military competition. Behind closed doors, insiders reported discussions involving Canadian aerospace jobs, technology transfer, joint training opportunities, potential Gripen production partnerships, lessons from Finland's and Czechia's interest in the Gripen, long-term Nordic-Canadian Arctic strategies. This was not a royal courtesy call, it was a calculated diplomatic nudge. And the Canadian media noticed. Following the visit, Canadian defense commentators began asking a once-forbidden question. Was the F-35 the right choice after all? This was not an attack on the F-35, it is undeniably a powerful aircraft, but Canada's unique requirements raise legitimate questions. 1. The Arctic advantage. Gripen was built for operations on icy airfields and remote bases, conditions identical to Canada's northern frontiers. 2. Sovereignty. With the F-35, all major maintenance, diagnostics, and software updates rely on the United States. Gripen offers full data sovereignty. 3. Cost efficiency. F-35 operating cost, extremely high. Gripen operating cost, among the lowest in the world. 4. Domestic industry. Saab promised Canada massive domestic production and tech transfer, something far greater than what the F-35 program offered. 5. Geopolitical flexibility. Choosing Gripen would diversify Canada's defense partnerships rather than relying solely on the US. And most importantly, 6. Canada can have both. Some experts argue Canada might integrate a mixed fleet. F-35 for stealth and NATO missions. Gripen for Arctic patrols and sovereignty missions. This dual fleet idea, once dismissed as unrealistic, began gaining traction after the Swedish king's visit spotlighted Swedish-Canadian cooperation. Within days, Canadian headlines read, "Is the Gripen still in play? Sweden's king pitches a fighter jet as a gift of friendship. Should Canada reconsider its air power mix?" Defense journalists, analysts, and ex-military officials reignited old debates. Some argued, the F-35 is cutting edge. No need to look back. Others countered, Canada's needs are different. Gripen solves problems the F-35 doesn't. Suddenly, the Gripen, once thought eliminated, was back in the conversation. And Saab knew the moment was ripe.